Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Amjad Ahmed, and I'm Director of the Empower Middle East Initiative at the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council has organized this program in partnership with the U.S. Embassy Riyadh, the American Chamber of Commerce Saudi Arabia, and Quantum Leaps. This workshop is the first in a series of 5 that we have planned for the rest of this year. I am honored to be here today with inspiring women leaders from Saudi Arabia and the United States as part of a new program to bring U.S. entrepreneurs, experts, and business leaders together with their Saudi counterparts. Building relationships, sharing knowledge, and developing partnership and investment opportunities between these two communities are crucial to increasing economic activity and prosperity for both countries. Saudi Arabia has embarked on an essential economic transition with a substantial rise in entrepreneurship and with women playing a greater role in the country's economy. This program focuses on increasing women's economic participation by sharing the policies, knowledge, tools, and networks for women to take the courageous leap into entrepreneurship and innovation. Today, we will start with a fireside chat between Saudi Arabia Ambassador to the US, Her Royal Highness Princess Rima bin Bandar Al Saud, and US Embassy Riyadh Chargé d'Affaires Martina Straw. We will then transition to a panel discussion followed by breakout rooms. As a reminder, the fireside chat and the panel discussions are on the record and will be recorded, but the breakout rooms and the wrap-up at the end are off the record and will not be recorded. Now I would like to introduce our distinguished guests for the fireside chat. Her Royal Highness Princess Rima bint Bandar bin Sultan bint Abdulaziz Al Saud was appointed ambassador to the US in 2019, and she is Saudi Arabia's first women ambassador. In 2000, she co-founded Yabrin, a women's gym, and she was the CEO of Alpha International Company Limited from 2007 to 2015. Princess Rima has served as a member of the World Bank's Advisory Council for the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative since 2017. Martina Strong is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service, and she previously served in Iraq as political minister counselor in Baghdad and as the US Army's political advisor in Basra. Prior to her arrival in Riyadh, she was the deputy chief of mission in Bulgaria. Martina also spent 2 years as director on the National Security Council at the White House. And with that, over to you, Martina.
Thank you very much, Amjad, for that kind introduction. And I would like to welcome everyone joining us today. Our panelists, Latifa Al-Balan, Amal Dokhan, Courtney Gadudik, and Esther Nichu. Let me also welcome all of the women and men who are participating virtually in today's discussions from the United States and across Saudi Arabia. And of course, those who are joining us in person here in Riyadh. I'm honored to have a chance to speak with my trailblazing diplomatic colleague and friend, Her Royal Highness Princess Rima bint Bandar Al Saud. You know, I remember when Princess Rima and I, shortly after her historic appointment as the first Saudi ambassador, had a discussion about the incredible pace of reforms and the scope of reforms that are sweeping across Saudi Arabia. Every aspect of Saudi society and economy has been touched by these reforms in the 5 years of the Vision 2030 reform program. In today's Saudi economy, one can sense the dynamism, the creativity, new sectors and opportunities are being generated and expanded every single day. Our session today and the entire Ignite program are dedicated to ensuring that women entrepreneurs and investors in Saudi Arabia are positioned to take advantage of these new opportunities. I know that all of the women on today's panel, and especially Princess Rima, share this dedication and commitment. We want to see many more women take their rightful place of leadership in the economy and across Saudi society. So let me turn now to our discussion with Her Royal Highness Princess Rima. You are, of course, known as internationally as the Saudi ambassador to the United States. You are a diplomat, a formidable policymaker, and of course, you have also been very active in international sports as a member of the International Olympic Committee and through your work in support of Special Olympics. And I think some in our audience may not realize that you are also a very successful business owner and social entrepreneur. You, as was already mentioned by Amjad, co-founded companies such as Ibrahim, as well as a luxury handbag brand, Barbell, and the Al Khair Youth Career Development Organization. So all of these activities have obviously prepared you very, very well to join us today in today's discussion and share some of your own experiences as an entrepreneur. So without further ado, let me turn to some of the questions that we have prepared for you. And I would like to start by just asking for your own reflections on all the changes that are happening here in Saudi Arabia on the entrepreneurship scene in the economy, and what do you think all of these changes have meant for women as they try to take advantage of the many new opportunities?
You know, Marta, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for organizing something like this with the Atlantic Council. I think it's really important that we keep the ties of communication going on multiple levels. And as you know, obviously entrepreneurship and women's issues are very dear to my heart. You know, Martina, you ask a very important question. And I think when I sometimes sit back and look, I say, what on God's green earth am I doing? Between where I started, my studies actually had nothing to do with the work I did, let alone where I am right now, museum studies, but it was my passion, and I had a deep goal of creating something and building something. But what I've realized is there's a common thread. The entrepreneurial spirit does not care whether you're in government or if you're in the private sector or if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're just traveling the world trying to find yourself. It's the spirit that constantly makes you think, what else could I do? Where's the gap in the market and how can I enter it and who can I help? And I have found that the skills that I had to learn, the scrappiness of being an entrepreneur, of trying to start something where nothing exists, find partnership and collaboration where it doesn't seem obvious, and to keep trying to iterate and develop, actually are the very same skills I needed in this job. Quite similar to many women across the world, when I woke up and tried to find my contemporary and my colleague, I couldn't find that in the kingdom. It was the same when we started our business. The difference, Martina, which when we first met, funny enough, was in an airport. We were waiting for Secretary Pompeo to arrive because, you know, that's just how life happens when you join the world of politics. You come, you go, and all of a sudden you meet fantastic people everywhere. And you have to be open to the opportunities. And the opportunity I was open to was, what could I learn and how could I engage better? Vision 2030 changed everything for me because I experienced, as many of the women in this room have, if they had started their careers in the days where really nothing was available to us. We were scrappy, we tried to figure it out, we used whatever resources we had, we worked with the regulations as limiting as they were. But today, when I look at these young female entrepreneurs, the challenge isn't regulatory anymore. The challenge isn't really even financial anymore because the opportunities are there for financial development and support and growth. Mentorship is available. The limitation today is your dream. And what I find so profound about Vision 2030 is it's unlocked so many opportunities for women to dream, but then to action the dream. And that's the difference. And that's a profound difference because many of us sat and thought, oh, I wish I could. But today you actually can. Whether it's the regulations on female inclusion in the financial sector, retail sector, community and society as a whole, you've seen it, Martina, it's a fundamental shift. You know, I turned 46 2 days ago, and when I first started in the year 2000, I was a dreamer. And I realized all the women of Saudi were dreamers, but the most compelling element in our core as Saudi women is that we persevere. We persevere even in obstacle, and we're like the water that goes through the rocks. We'll find our way. But wouldn't it have been wonderful, is what I thought when I was younger. The rocks and the obstacles weren't there. And what I can tell the women in the room is you will always face a challenge. But we have worked so hard, and the we I'm talking about is not myself. It is the women who have come and worked for the past 20 to 25 years to get us here. And it's the men and women who have been working within the government sectors across the board to make this vision be real. And it's all under this leadership of youth. And I find it so inspiring, particularly since I'm not young anymore. But youthful leadership, spirit of innovation, it's overwhelming. And I can't wait to see what the women in the room do.
Thank you so much for that great answer. I mean, I feel inspired already. And you had actually touched on some of the other questions I wanted to ask you. And those really kind of concern the qualities that Saudi women entrepreneurs are bringing to this new economy that's being built. And you had mentioned perseverance, the dreams that they've had and now are able to finally action, the relationship building, which I find Saudi women to be so tremendously talented at. And as you said, it's like the water in the rocks. You find a way to get things done. And it really has been, for me, a tremendous professional experience to watch all of these changes unfold, all of this talent being unleashed across the kingdom, and this new momentum in the Saudi economy that is very much being driven by women. And it's a story that is frequently not told, and I think it's really a shame. So I hope that through discussions like the one we're having today, that narrative will also emerge and become more publicly acknowledged. I did want to ask you, though, about the challenges, and you touched on some of them that existed here in the past, and the fact that many of those have now fallen away. And of course, one of the challenges, which I think is not necessarily just a challenge here in Saudi Arabia or in the past, but around the world, is financing, and women being able to access funding and financial support for their dreams, and being able to perhaps find also advice, financial advice on how to make sure that their companies are successful and are on a strong financial footing. And so I wanted to sort of ask you, how do you see the picture here in Saudi Arabia today? And what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs that are filled with great dreams, but don't necessarily have access to capital?
Right. So as you mentioned, I think this is a global issue. When I sit and speak to female entrepreneurs in the US, international female entrepreneurs, access to capital is one of the #1 issues that they face. So the unfortunate thing is, because historically there have not been as many female entrepreneurs as men, it does become, you go to what you're comfortable to. So the assumption of the man is, if there's 5 opportunities, that the 4 that the men presented are better. It's human instinct. You can't judge them for it. What we can do is we can be better prepared. My advice to all women is, do not be ashamed to recognize you may or may not have certain skills. I will tell you, financial was my weakness, and I was embarrassed to say it, so I didn't seek the help that I needed. And so it causes you to stumble in your business. The first thing you need to do is get the correct financial advice, not only on how to structure your business, but how to run the business and make the best financial decisions and do financial modeling for your dream and your aspiration, because it puts a reality check. The access to capital in the kingdom is better, but it is now dependent on your actual ingenuity and your ability to convince the person on the other side. So I would advise all women, take public speaking courses, learn how to present, take debate courses, because you know what? You have to argue your position. No one's going to give you money just because you think you have a good idea. And no one's going to support you today only because you're a woman. And you shouldn't want that either. You shouldn't want the opportunity just because you're a woman. You should want the opportunity because what you're delivering is excellent, is competitive, and compelling. And make sure that you can answer the question, why you? Because I find a lot of women, when I get the proposal, they'll say, I've thought of something nobody else has, take a look. And I'll look at it and I'll say, this is a great idea, but you know what? In the world, there is no new idea. The world has been around for billions of years. If you've thought of it, someone else has thought of it. So make sure if you're presenting it, that they look at yours and say, oh, I've seen this, but my God, look what she's done with it. Look how she's innovated. Look how she's developed it. That's healthy competition, and it's necessary. Otherwise, we're operating in vacuums. And don't be distressed by the no. All the no means is you need to go back and either tweak your business case or tweak the financials to be more compelling. And it can be embarrassing. I promise you, I've done it. I've done presentations where someone goes, no, thank you for your time. You can walk away, or if you're committed to your idea, keep persevering. Access to capital was your question. There are so many opportunities. I would say immediately go to the Ministry of Commerce website. They do have a directory of where you can find support. Go to Munsha'at and look under all that they do. You're going to have Ahmed Khan on the call after us. Please pose this question to her, because she actually works in this field and she can give you the exact banks, the exact funds that you could reach out to better than I could. I wish I came prepared with that list. I'll be better prepared next time. But ladies, there's one really important thing. Your idea may be phenomenal for you. It may not be commercially viable. That does not mean your idea wasn't worth it. Keep trying. Keep trying 101 times, because time 102 may be the one. And what you learn on the way, the advice you take is not a rejection of you. It is the advice that someone's giving you to better your ability to actually create the one. And the humbling news that we also have to recognize, not everyone is meant to be the entrepreneur. Somebody actually needs to work in these businesses. So my other advice would be, if you have an idea, try to get a job in that industry and learn from the person who's already in that field. Take your notes so that you don't fall into the pitfalls they face, whether they're HR, whether they're communication. Learn from that experience and take that almost as an academy, and then develop your concept out of there. It's much less expensive. You're getting paid for it, and you get an inside look at the mechanics of this business.
Lots of fantastic advice there. Thank you so much. And you've actually touched upon a few additional elements that I think successful entrepreneurs somehow are able to deploy all at the same time to take that idea, take that dream, and bring it forward into a successful project. Communication being obviously one, and very, very critical, but also the ability to deal with failure and disappointments and pick themselves up and continue to move forward. And you had alluded to this in your answer, that you yourself had faced adversity in your entrepreneurial career. And I'm just curious what you found helpful when you presented your idea and you got that very crisp no or no thank you. In response, what inspired you to continue, or did you have mentors who said, no, Princess Rima, don't give up. This is really great and you need to keep going. I'm just curious how you dealt with adversity and what you found helpful.
Well, the first thing when I get the no is I put it away and take a break for a week. Not from life, but from that idea. You've got to pick up and you keep going. If you're going to take a break from life because you got to know, you're not going to be successful in anything. You've just got to compartmentalize and say, okay, great, let's pause this. Let's get some air, because sometimes when you're so committed to your concept, you can't see otherwise. And then I shop it around, and I shop it around to people, and I say, this is why I was told no, what do you see? I shop it around to friends in communication. I shop it around to people who've never seen a business plan. I go, does this make sense? And you know what? I find the most interesting comments come from people who have nothing to do with the field that I'm presenting to. And some of them will go, you know what, darling, no, just no. And you have to humbly accept it, because we're not all geniuses all the time. We're not all perfect all the time. And it just is, okay, what did I learn from that? And sometimes the lesson is a personal lesson in how do you deal with stress. My biggest thing for women is, if you are going to take that path of entrepreneurship, make sure you're financially stable, because the stress you will put on yourself if you are not financially stable will be infinite, because you will constantly be worrying about, how am I going to take care of myself and or my family? And as many of you know, financial literacy and financial self-sufficiency is what I try to champion. Save your money, ladies. Put it away. I promise you, the investment you make in yourself will be more important than any bag, any shoe, any dinner, any trip you could possibly take. Make sure you have that financial security that allows you to not have the stress, so that you can do this dream. And you know what? Until you can get there, slow down. There is no magical time for what you're doing. Nothing is time sensitive. That's what I learned, Martina. And I'll give you the biggest example. In year 2000, yes, we founded Yubreen. Through every single obstacle, we persevered. 10 years, we wanted to scale and grow, but the way we wanted to scale and grow was not possible, because the environment we were in did not make it possible, either through regulations or even community acceptance. 16 years later, I was hired at the Ministry of Sport to deregulate the same environment that I was actually trying to work in. And so it comes back, it comes full circle. I didn't ask for the role. I don't even think they knew I had the gym for 10 years at that point. But it comes back. It comes back if you place yourself in the right environments, in the right communities, but you keep learning. So I was able to then be the entrepreneur again in government and say, okay, today, what are the obstacles compared to then? And how can we fix this for other people? But the entrepreneurial spirit is never ending. You can be an entrepreneur from your kitchen, in your home. You can be an entrepreneur sitting behind a desk. You can be an entrepreneur selling corn on the side of the street. There's no definition that says the entrepreneur is at a laptop working in technology. Technology is just the tool. So don't limit yourself to what you think people define entrepreneurship as. It is simply your personal endeavor that is started by yourself, with sometimes yours, sometimes other people's capital, but it's your tenacity, your intuitiveness, you know, your ability to create something where nothing was. And you know what? I always tell people, a mother's an entrepreneur. Her 4 projects, if she has 4 kids, are project A, B, C, D. Those are her startups, and she ships them off, you know, and she IPOs when they go to college or get a job. So it exists everywhere.
Thank you. What a great transition to my next question. And I think this is the last one, given that we're on a tight schedule. But it concerns the impact of the pandemic on women. And of course, so much has been written about the fact that women in much greater proportions than men, for example, lost their jobs because they were mothers and they were, you know, at home with the kids while the kids were learning virtually, or did not have access to childcare, or simply just lost their jobs because their companies closed and could not keep them on the payroll. So I'm wondering, as the new post-pandemic environment takes shape, what do you see as perhaps new opportunities for women or new challenges for women in the post-pandemic world?
So, you know, to your point, Martina, more women have been pushed into poverty because of COVID. And yes, more women have lost their jobs than men, simply because of, you know, the structure of the world and our lives. And more women were forced to leave school. And that breaks my heart, because along with that comes the emotional crisis around loss of identity, and loss of self because you've lost the opportunity that you worked so hard for. But in that is the opportunity. So to the female entrepreneur, what would it look like if you know there's a highly skilled class of women who for the foreseeable future are going to work from home because they've lost that secondary income and the job markets are slow? That's your new consumer. What does she need at home? What does she need personally? What does she need mentally, emotionally? Those are 5 business opportunities. Are you one of those women? What do you want? Would you use a service and engagement? Is it a group? Is it a communication? Is it a platform? Are you a recruiter? Go recruit them. They are seeking the opportunity and want to be reached out to as much as you want them if you're the employer. So when we say find the hole in the market, look for that opportunity. Tupperware was a phenomenal business that simply knocked on people's doors and said, have you seen this? You may be interested. It solved the problem of the American woman who couldn't drive to the store and needed access to product, the most basic product, a Tupperware, a little pot to put things in. It was not the most dramatic innovation. Mary Kay drove from door to door and knocked on someone's door and said, hey, do you need a lipstick? Do you need a mascara? Again, not revolutionary, but it was. It was, but it solved a need for the woman that couldn't leave her home. And don't think that challenge exists just in Saudi. It is global. It's happening in McLean, Virginia, where I live. It's happening in Nairobi, and it's happening in Riyadh. So I would say, what do you need? Get a pen and paper and then write down who could help me do it? What would I need to do it? And COVID is not your enemy. COVID was a moment for the whole world to recheck itself and say, am I over consuming? Am I over engaging? Am I losing my ties? And you know what? So many people suffered physical and emotional loss. If you weren't one of them, count your blessings. But then look around you and say, what was I blessed with? I will tell you, my blessing was time with my children. And I'm grateful for that. But my loss was time away from my parents because I couldn't get to them. So we all face loss, some at a greater degree, some at a less, but there are opportunities. Find the hole in the market, but start with yourself or look at your children and say, what could we need? And begin there. You don't need to be Bill Gates. You don't need to be, the inventor of some phenomenal thing. But if you are that inventor, be the best. Be the best. And one of your next speakers, Latifa, is the best at what she does. And I can't wait for you to hear what she says because she's ridiculously inspiring and has saved my life because I spent all of COVID drinking Arabic coffee because of her, And who knew I would need it that badly because I couldn't get home, but I still got my coffee. So Latifa, if you're listening, chapeau.
Well, it's those creature comforts that mean everything when we're in the midst of a crisis or some kind of a massive dislocation, as this pandemic certainly was. But I want to conclude by thanking you, Your Royal Highness, for this very inspiring message. Be the best. I know that Saudi Arabia, not just Saudi Arabia, around the world, we have so many women that are poised to be the best. And they have, of course, suffered adversity, suffered setbacks. But at the end of the day, it's good advice like the one that you have just shared with us that makes all the difference. And some of these women, I'm sure, were taking notes furiously and will go on the website of the Ministry of Commerce and will hopefully find a path to translate their dreams into reality, into real projects. And even if they don't, even if they take their time and maybe do it 5 years from now, I know that they will carry your words with them. And again, thank you for your passion. Thank you for your commitment to improving everyone's lives, not just women's lives here in the kingdom and around the world. And thank you for all your work to strengthen the bilateral relationship. It's really been tremendous and an honor for me to work with you over the past several years. Yeah. So over to Amjad. I think you're taking over next. Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank Your Royal Highness for being with us today, as well as Martina. And I just want to say her work in her pioneering venture and at the Sports Authority has led to actually a growth in women gyms that we've seen recently in Saudi Arabia. So to her point about timing, I think it's very relevant. Um, uh, Thank you again. And now we'll move to introduce our fantastic panel for today. I can't think of a better group of people that we could have gotten together. I want to start with introducing Latifa Al-Wa'lan. She is the Managing Director at Endeavor Saudi Arabia. She is a board member at Riyadh Chamber of Commerce and the Global Entrepreneurship Network Saudi. She is the founder of Yatuk and the co-founder of Arum and Sele Plus Network. She was named Entrepreneur of the Year in Saudi Arabia in 2014. Next is Amal Dukhan, of course, who is a partner at 500 Startups MENA and is part of the Entrepreneurship Center at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in a number of roles, including the New Ventures Acceleration and Corporate Innovation Program. Prior to that, she worked at the Cal Seed Fund and started her own business, which organized sports events and other commercial consultancy to large organizations. Next is Courtney Gedulig, who is Executive Vice President, Public Affairs for S&P Global. Courtney was previously Managing Director and Head of Federal Government Relations at the Financial Services Forum, Chief Financial Counselor to Senator Bob Corker, and Deputy Assistant Secretary for Banking and Finance at the U.S. Treasury Department. She co-authored a fantastic book, Where the Jobs Are, Entrepreneurship and the Soul of the American Economy. And last but not least is Esther Nichu, who is UPS's Vice President of International Community Relations and the UPS Foundation. Esther previously oversaw the UPS business unit in South Africa, as well as public affairs and government relations in the Indian subcontinent and the Middle East and Africa. She focused on increasing gross border trade and identified ways to assist SMEs to access global markets. Let me start with Courtney to set the scene because she co-authored a really fantastic book about entrepreneurship in the US. Courtney, what are some of the factors that help promote entrepreneurship in the US? Because these are lessons that we could learn from as entrepreneurship scales in Saudi.
Sure, it's an interesting question because one of the reasons that we started on the project to work on the book, which was 8 years ago, and ironically, not much has changed, even though there's been a bit of up and down and some wins and some setbacks in the meantime. But one of the reasons we started the project was that it was just following the financial crisis and the response to the financial crisis with Dodd-Frank and some of the legislation that passed Congress, and new business formation had really fallen off a cliff following the financial crisis. Not surprisingly, in some ways, due to primarily a lot of the challenges that existed in credit and funding resources. But we also knew that new business formation was, in the United States anyway, the greatest source of net new job creation. And large corporations like my employer don't like hearing that, but they're not actually great job creators. They're sort of, they're job destroyers, and then they replace the jobs, and really the new businesses are where jobs come from. So ultimately, that's what policymakers need to understand and care about, because they really care about that net new job creation. But the pace of new business formation had really fallen off a cliff at that point in 2012-13 in the United States. And we really wanted to understand why, and then what could be done to reverse that trend. So we went on the road across the United States. We went to 12 different cities. We worked with mayors, we worked with governors, we worked with incubators, and we worked with the entire kind of ecosystem, the venture resources, the angel resources, banks who don't play a huge role in this, but we wanted to understand the entire landscape. And one of the really interesting things that we found, we found some pockets of really great best practices and some stories of where we did see entrepreneurs connecting with each other, was that by and large, there was not a lot of that connectivity happening particularly with women. And in one of our early roundtables that we conducted in the Flatiron District in New York, we had a really great discussion and some great participants from the mayor's office and the governor's office, and some entrepreneurs from the city, a lot of new tech entrepreneurs, and it was a great conversation. But at the end, someone came up to us and said, you know, you really one of these with just women, and you'll be surprised at how much more candid women are when it's a room full of just women having this conversation, and B, I think you'll find that that they have very, very strong commonalities in the challenges that they face. And so I think what we learned when we ultimately did this a few weeks later out in California with just women entrepreneurs and VC funders and angel investors around the table was that they were right. Women told the same stories of some of the things that Princess Rima was just talking about with you know, the confidence and the ability to have the financial literacy and the business acumen and access to funding and credit access and needing to get a man to co-sign loans with them. I mean, it was shocking to hear that in the United States in 2013. The lack of ability to take life risk, the pull and the demands on them from their caregiving responsibilities were so significant that they couldn't move forward and to scale their ideas and their businesses. And I think that's one of the, you know, opportunities we have in not just the United States, and certainly there've been a lot of setbacks, and I think we have a lot more work to do post-pandemic, particularly in that latter area of providing support for women in the life risk area and the caregiving area. But I do think it's presenting maybe not necessarily some lessons in what we're doing well, but I think we maybe should start looking to the rest of the world outside the United States for places where they are doing that a little bit better for women.
That's an interesting point, and I'm wondering, maybe we can bring in Latifa. Is that something you're seeing in Saudi Arabia as well, that caregiving and that support and that sort of insecurity financially is impacting that leap into entrepreneurship in the kingdom?
Well, I think that is common across all genders in terms of whether to start a business or not. The large majority of Saudi people are employed by the government, not even the private sector. But what I've been seeing is there is this rise of a subsector of women getting into business through their home businesses, enabled by technology with all the different delivery apps and e-commerce solutions that are there. They're able to put their innovative ideas out there and start sourcing. And technology's penetration of the internet and digital access, I'm seeing it's helping positively. Now, that's entering the market. Scaling is a different challenge. Turning these small businesses or micro businesses into more substantial, sustainable businesses is definitely a challenge, and for women more than men, I would say.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, as someone who's been investing for 2 decades now in the region, you know, I think financing in general is challenging, but financing to women is even more challenging, which is why I'm happy really to have, I think, one of the sort of pioneering venture capitalist women with us, Amal. So it'd be great to hear your perspective from 500 startups, because actually, you know, your position is seed stage and very early stage companies. So I'm wondering what you're seeing in financing in general, but also specifically to women.
I'm pretty loud, you know, I can try. All right. So I think there's
so many things that we can speak about, whether from a global perspective or, you know, in the MENA or in Saudi Arabia when it comes to funding. But if you want to focus currently, you know, in the MENA region where our fund and their newly established fund is, we're definitely witnessing an increase in funding, right? We actually crossed the border of $1 billion in amount of funding in the past years. And that is something we probably wouldn't have seen a decade ago. And that is a positive connotation. That means there is actually funding, there is interest in venture capital, there is interest in investing in technology startups. So since we can put that a little bit aside, then we can look into why some of the startups are not getting funding. And I think that's the bottom, you know, that we need to dig deeper into, whether it's for both genders, actually. So one of the interesting stats, you know, by Magnet, they actually mentioned that in 2020, there was a huge increase. They actually passed the $156 million during that, you know, crisis time, you know, only in Saudi, right? And then measure on that, you know, the rest of the world. All right, moving forward in 2021, an increase by 56% in comparison to the past year. So let's put, you know, the not availability of funding, you know, aside, because I think there is a lot of investors that are looking for that. We at 500, you know, especially in the MENA stage, are looking for the startups in that actually, you know, space. What do we need? We need more entrepreneurs that can come and look at the gaps, as, you know, Princess Rima have mentioned correctly, you know, find a gap that nobody has touched before, or you can do it in a much better way. Find a team, a technology team that can support you, a team that is much better than you, right? That complements all your capabilities. There is no weakness of being a woman. You're actually stronger, that's what I would say. And I say it to all males as well, for the entrepreneurs. Find a team that will complement every aspect. That is the number one thing that any venture capital will look at before the idea, before the product, before the technology and the market as well. Cap that at the market, right? So enough of a market that is big enough and I can scale. So team and scale. What do I need after that? Customers that will buy, money will come. Actually, money will follow you. And you have seen, we've seen that a lot in the past years. Gathering is one of the, you know, female-led companies here in Saudi. $6 million in funding in Series A. That is a lot of money, right? Well, she actually managed to put these points. It was led by STB and 500. So I think, you know, it's just about finding the right formula. It's just about finding really what the market needs, what an investor wants, being so good at it, you know, and just moving on. So that's pretty much, you know, what we're seeing. And I think as 500, you know, we just launched that cohort, and I don't think we had a lack of startups or had of like applications to actually look at. So we're very excited, yeah, for the coming period.
I'm just wondering, out of your cohort, how many of those were women-led businesses? I mean, if you had to put sort of a percentage, just so we understand sort of how many women are actually entering the entrepreneurship phase.
So if you look at general in MENA, you know, in the MENA actually percentage, you'll have more than 14 or 50% of the companies are actually female, right? In general, all across accelerators and different types of funding. So in 500, we try to encourage, you know, that more and really encourage more women to obviously apply. I don't have the whole statistics, you know, of all across accelerators. We have accelerators of different parts of the world, but obviously I can say even as, you know, for me personally, being in that field, you know, for the past decade, I've seen a lot of women that are actually getting into this. We're actually witnessing more, you know, female entrepreneurial-led, you know, ventures in the past years. So I don't think we are lacking that. We just want to see probably more technology-led startups, you know, that will be able to scale, you know, in the coming period. So I think more and more is actually going to be seen, you know, in terms of startups that are funded, you know, and that are led by women.
That's great. Great to hear. Esther, if I may, you know, corporates, I think, play such a critical role in helping the ecosystem. And I think UPS specifically, given that you're such an enabler of a lot of tech businesses, especially on the e-commerce side, I'm curious to hear what you're seeing specifically in the Kingdom or MENA. And then I know you have several programs to sort of help entrepreneurs. So it'd be great to hear about some of those.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. And I'm so inspired after listening to all the speeches. I was sitting here thinking, okay, so what's my next venture? Maybe I might want to switch careers altogether and become an entrepreneur. until Her Royal Highness said that some of us, we do need to stick to our lane. So I'm going to stick to my lane in the corporate space. Yeah, so I guess for us, being one of the leading logistics providers around the world, we've spent some time looking at different channels. And when you think about having a direct impact on local communities, which is what I do in my current role, even though I've held other roles within the organization, looking at the SMEs and the impact that they have is undeniably the way to go for us. And so we have a full channel within the organization, different regions, where we've developed products, we've developed solutions, we're working with technology platforms to ensure that we can be able to provide the right solutions for the SMEs around the world. So looking at our presence, while we will be celebrating our 114th anniversary this year. We've been in the Middle East since 1989 and in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia since 1997. And we've been engaged in different areas of business. One, first establishing our existence, and then two, we've taken that relationship to the next level where we're working with the government and local partners to try and tap into the different areas within the different communities. For us, and today I wear two hats. I wear a hat from the foundation, and our foundation is a philanthropic arm. However, would not be in existence without, of course, the business. And from a foundation's perspective, our mission is to make sure we're delivering pathways to empower safe and resilient communities. From a business perspective, we're also looking at how to tap into different businesses and different channels, as I mentioned before. So looking at the work we've done, well, one, partnering with the AmCham of Saudi Arabia and ensuring that we are a focal point and a focal partner within the AmCham's Women in Business Committee. We continue to work, looking at ways that we can be able to support entrepreneurs around the world, but more so in specific communities where we know we can actually move the needle. So whilst we may be working with, I think the platforms and the models that we have in different markets are targeted to the specific needs within the community. So with that said, we continue to work with and promote the small and middle-sized SMEs in the region. We recently signed an MOU with the Saudi General Authority of Small Business and Medium Enterprise. I think Her Royal Highness mentioned this, Mushat, and the fact that we're working with them to try and promote and engage with SMEs in Saudi Arabia. Taking it more to a higher level, since 2018, UPS has partnered with the International Trade Center's She Trades. And for those of you that are not familiar with She Trades, I would encourage you to go out and read a little bit more on them and what they do. They are a connector of women entrepreneurs with suppliers, and with businesses, with finance, and with our role as a logistics provider is to provide channels for women entrepreneurs around the world to access global markets. So how do we do this? Our work is broken up into three focal areas. So one, capacity building. So how do we close that gap? How do we ensure that that woman sitting in her house who's trying to access the global markets has the skills from a logistics perspective? So we know that's one of the issues where you've got a good idea, you've got a good product, but you don't know how to access global markets. You don't know what the challenges are. You might have built in your costing based on your cost to produce the actual packaging, and you forgot to, or the actual product, and you didn't factor in the real costs associated with getting those products from A to B. Or A to B, C, D, depending on what your market is. So that's where we come in with some of the webinars that we host with women entrepreneurs. Market access, so being that connector and making sure that we're bringing in additional private sector partners to the conversation that will help the women SMEs that we work with to access those markets. And lastly, from an advocacy perspective, so how do we come in as a large organization that's involved in global trade to ensure that we're working with governments, to ensure that we are helping SMEs work in a safe environment, that the legal framework and the regulatory framework is one that encourages women to be able to get into this space. So since we launched our Women Exporters program in 2018, we've been able to work with about 6,000 women in the region. And when I say region, that's a greater region of the Indian subcontinent, Middle East, and Africa. And globally, we've worked with about 15,000 women, helping them navigate the exporting world, which I think is phenomenal. We've got stories to tell, in different markets that we go to, where you have a person that had that great idea, but they did not understand what they needed to have in place to be able to scale up or to be able to take their business from a local cottage industry and actually get it out into the international market. I can go on and on.
Yeah. No, look, I would just want to urge a lot of the entrepreneurs on the call to look at all these corporate programs, because I think they could be really useful and to help you scale your business. I think it's something that's really important. I have a million questions because you guys are such a phenomenal panel, but we're going to carry this discussion into 2 separate rooms and give people in the audience a chance to chat with you as well. But before we do that, we wanted to take a very small poll. So if you don't mind looking at the screen and following the instructions to take the poll, and then we will move to the breakout rooms. Thank you.